The night was a throat full of fog. The graveyard lay under a black sky, a missing tooth in the mouth of the world. Its stones stood in crooked ranks, like old soldiers who had forgotten why they were fighting but could not leave the field. The air was a cold, wet breath on the skin, promising a chill that would go deeper than the bone. The man walked between the rows of the dead. His steps made no sound on the damp soil. He was a small, dark shape in a place that had swallowed bigger things than him. He was a trespasser here, and the land knew it. The land always knew. He did not know how long he had been here. An hour, a lifetime. The fog tasted of rust and old secrets, a flavor that clung to the back of his tongue. The headstones, slick with a dew that was not quite water, leaned in as if to listen to the frantic beat of his heart. They were hungry for a story. His story. The story he had tried to bury. He carried a weight inside him, a crime that had no name, but had a shape and a feel to it. A hot, jagged thing in his gut, a thing that the cold air could not touch. This place, however, seemed to know it well. His hands were a problem. They would not stay still. They trembled with a life of their own, as if they remembered actions his mind fought to forget. He tried to force them into submission, to slow his panicked heart, but the graveyard kept him from any kind of rest. The ground was not dead. He felt it under the thin soles of his boots. The earth rose and fell in a slow rhythm, like troubled lungs pulling in fog and exhaling a damp, earthy scent. Each breath from the ground pressed up into him, a steady pressure that mirrored the guilt he carried. It made him think of things buried in haste, of secrets hidden just beneath the surface, waiting to be unearthed. He tried to run. If he could reach the iron fence, he could escape. But the path seemed to close like a fist before him. The ground yielded and pulled. Cold soil took hold. Thin roots slipped like fingers across his skin, a terrible and intimate caress. A dizzying sickness rose in his throat. It did not hurt like a knife or a fist. It hurt like the certainty that you are trapped. The world was pressing in. Fear came in steady beats. Every few seconds, the pressure rose a notch. A small, indistinct sound, then a profound hush, then a sharper, closer sound. A dry leaf skittering across a tomb, a soft thud like earth dropped on a coffin lid. His breathing matched the land. He tried to count his steps, to find an anchor, but the rows were a shifting maze. Every headstone seemed to face him, each one remembered and each one asked. The whispers grew insistent, not fragments, but words he recognized, the names of the dead and the names of his sins. The ground exhaled, and a name would rise with its breath. Betrayal. The stones shifted. Greed. He stumbled, and the soil whispered a word directly into his skin. Murder. The graveyard was not just a place, it was a witness. The man was a vessel, and guilt was the tide filling him up. It rose from his feet, cold as the soil clinging to his boots. With every whisper and every breath of the earth, the tide rose higher, his legs heavy and slow, his stomach a churning sea of regret. He was a man drowning in himself. The graveyard was simply the ocean. His madness was not a break from reality, it was the only truth left. His mind began to play tricks, or the land did. He saw movement at the edge of vision, a white flicker from behind a tombstone, and turned to see only swirling fog. He heard a child's laugh, high and clear, cut short as if smothered by a hand. It was a sound he knew, a sound he had caused. The sound echoed in the hollow spaces of his memory. The yard's silence made it relentless. He was alone, but had never been less alone. Pressure mounted in short, unbearable beats, a band tightening around his skull. The whispers were no longer outside. They echoed within. The voices of the dead became his own thoughts. A face in the dark, a flash of fear. The final, terrible stillness. Memory moved through him like a cold wind, rattling the broken windows of his soul. Faces he had seen in the dark, faces he had tried to erase, rose with perfect, horrifying clarity. Each face a question, each question a leaden weight. He thought he could explain, but he had no words left. His throat was a desert. The graves kept the answers. They held truths he could no longer bear. The earth whispered his damnation, piece by terrible piece. Once, a thinning fog revealed a path. It looked older, less traveled, and led toward the outer wall, toward streetlights, cars, people who were not dead. He ran, desperate, lurching, like a drowning man hoping to breathe. But the graveyard was a living trap. Fog folded over the path. Rows of stones shifted, lines of the landscape warped. He was utterly lost again. Hope flickered, and made despair worse. He was being hunted, not by claws, not by teeth, but by the land itself, and by the memories it held. There was no path out, no peace. Every turn met accusing stones. He would walk for miles, only to find the same broken angel. The graveyard toyed with him, in no hurry for the final kill. As the night wore on, his thoughts began to thin. The panic ebbed away, replaced by a strange, hollow calm. He felt lighter and yet more full, as if emptied of himself and filled with the graveyard. The pressure no longer pinched at his lungs, it had become part of him. The soil no longer pulled, it held him, firm and almost gentle. The grave stopped leaning, simply there, close and patient. He stopped listening for silence. He knew he would only hear something like a last breath. It was not his breath. It belonged to the place. No peace came, no divine mercy broke the endless night. The fog kept its hard, impassive face. The stones kept their silent, jagged watch. The land had a long and perfect memory. It found every fault, every hidden crack in his soul, and made it speak. The man stood still, a statue among statues, listening to the sound of his own past. It rose and rose, a crescendo of whispers and images, until his head could not hold it anymore. He did not break, he simply became full. There was no more room for him inside himself. The graveyard had taken up all the space. Then the graveyard did a quiet thing. It stopped moving, as if to listen, for the end. The breathing paused. The whispers fell silent. For one beautiful, terrible second, there was nothing. He felt very small. The earth made a soft sound, a sigh of acceptance. A name left his mouth in a puff of white air, the last thing he owned. The fog closed in, not like a curtain, but like a lid being lowered. The world that would not forget settled in to claim what was always its own. No shout, no struggle, no final flash of light, only the slow, sure, undeniable pull of the ground.